Excellent point. In fact, based on the speaking engagements I had around the country in dark winter, I found out that most people were very receptive to basic scientific facts of the new cold climate coming, and likewise on the earthquake predictions. So what we've done intentionally in Upheaval is put in a large amount of how to prepare sections in the book. The entire back section's dedicated to it. And it shows that there are, in fact, a number of things people can do other than just getting up and moving out of the earthquake zone altogether. But for the vast majority of people, they will be staying in the earthquake zones, and we give very specific steps on how to prepare, both for individuals and families, for businesses, and for government entities.
Yeah, because you have to understand those people on the move are going to be carrying so many valuables with them. They will be instant targets for banditry across the roads. And when I say banditry, I literally mean going back to the 1600s when they robbed grain shipments because of the cold and the lack of production of food. This is going to be no different, but you're going to be carrying whatever it is, firearms, gold, cash, jewelry. They're going to be after you as wolves are hunting in packs. Now, one thing with that, let's talk about food distribution. Not only will the food distribution network be disrupted, but how will that also disrupt crop production in those areas? And how will that have a knock-on effect to prices going down as delivery systems are cut and actual supply of foods that we eat? Now, the Midwest produces a lot of different foods that we consume daily. So the cold is going to affect this. And the earthquakes would also affect this. So how do you see it going forward with either the cold or the earthquakes in this food production itself?
Well, very good point, David. What we're going to send in Upheaval is the fact that we're going to have to face all of those pretty much at the same time. There's no escaping it. And furthermore, we're not just going to see the big one hit LA and have Southern California in disarray for a long period of time. But our analysis shows that during these almost 200-year earthquake cycles, we have a wave of catastrophic earthquakes that hit the US. So we're going to be dealing in a very short period of time with multiple catastrophic quakes on top of these cold cycles. If you go back to the New Madrid fault again, I was speaking with an emergency management official in Missouri last week, and he was quite concerned and a supporter of the science in Upheaval. He said, you know, one of the things that most Americans are not aware of is that much of the grain and the fuel that goes from the west to the eastern US goes right through the New Madrid fault. There are 15 major bridges, many of them rail bridges, and most of those will be completely destroyed, and it will take years to rebuild. If in fact we have a repeat of the 1811-1812 series of catastrophic quakes, what we learned from that was that you just can't go back in and start building again, because within a few months another catastrophic quake is going to tear down what you built. So it's going to be a very difficult situation. I'm hoping that we have no more than the last quake, a little less than 7.0, a single quake that struck around 1895. And if that happens, then we'll be doing good. But still, that's going to cause a great deal of damage by itself. If we do, in fact, have another series of quakes like the ones that struck over a 4-month period from 1811 to 1812 in the middle of winter, it will truly be catastrophic for the 8 states in that area, and then the massive collateral damage by loss of fuel, by loss of crop shipments, all the while between now and the time these catastrophic quakes hit. As I predicted, and as you have found out, we're already seeing ill effects of crop damage cutting down on the world's agricultural yield production.
Yeah, so let's go back to that point. If the rail lines are damaged and the bridges are damaged, what kind of excess capacity is in the barge traffic up and down the Mississippi to be able to deliver from one side of the river to the other and actually take the delivery of the shipments down to the coast? Do you know how much excess capacity there is for, you know, if we take it down into train tonnage versus barge tonnage in delivery
I do
capacity?
not
What is that
I do
there?
not have the tonnage figures to bring up at this point, but I can say that in the last 1811, 1812 New Madrid rupture, the Mississippi was literally lifted up in the air and the Mississippi flowed backwards. It took a long time to redirect, during which time the flows shut off in a lot of areas of the Mississippi and disrupted traffic through up and down the system. So I cannot say we can even rely on barge traffic at all if we have another repeat of the major rupture of 1811, 1812. And furthermore, if you look at the fuel and food shipments now that are carried north from the Midwest to the Northeast and south along the Gulf Coast, those are already at capacity, whether you're talking about the interstate system and the bridge capacities there, or the pipeline systems. They're already at capacity. They simply would not be able to pick up the shortfall once we lose those 15 bridges and the rail lines and the interstates and the pipelines that currently go through the central U.S. This is truly going to be a nationwide catastrophic event, and will have substantial long-term economic implications for our country.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then if the Oroville Dam goes as well, that's going to affect probably 1/8 of all the California agricultural production coming out of that Central Valley area near Sacramento. So if you start getting an 1/8 loss in the largest food producing area of the United States, and then something like a quake comes along and then takes out the Midwestern production, are we going to be able to rely on imports? Because as you've seen already, the European vegetable shortages this year, the grain shipments out of Ukraine blocked because of sea ice in the Baltic Sea. Those deliveries were at least 2 weeks behind. And then we see summer snows in New Zealand. There's a lot going on that they're not really reporting in the news as much. And, you know, that's my channel. I try to pick up on those stories. But I see a significant amount of crop losses across the planet that are being downplayed on purpose. The research I do is being stifled, and I know for sure the promotion of your book and the research that you put out is also being stifled. So why is this that they're trying to hide grain and vegetable losses, stone fruits, olives, and any kind of vine type of vegetables, and that includes wine vineyards as well? Why are they trying to hide this with Austrian losses at 30% of the entire country last year? It just goes on and on and on. And if you see the trend, there's definitely Europe's being affected by cold, the Middle East with all the blizzards and cold in Sahara, a meter of snow in the middle of the desert. So you start to see areas that are cooling across the planet. So why are they hiding this information from us, do you think?
Well, a couple of reasons. First off, the media in the United States is myopic. They tend to focus only on things in the U.S. and act as if there's no other world except the United States. That's unfortunate. That's why we need comprehensive national and international news, and we just aren't getting that. One has to go to BBC or other channels to find out what's happening in the rest of the world, sadly. So that's a systemic problem. Then you have the politics involved. Any kind of cold-related crop damage or cold events or cold records are routinely downplayed because they do not support the man-made global warming mantra. And unfortunately, we have to deal with that as well. Clearly, we have a media, both TV and print media, that is still trying to support the Obama climate action plan and climate power plan, even though the science is very clear that there's been effectively no growth in global warming for over 18 years now. That includes the 2015-2016 spike in global temperatures caused by a rare output of energy from the sun.
Yeah, I'll agree. It was a solar max that hadn't been experienced in thousands of years. Now, from this point forward, next year, I do believe, and it's my personal opinion, that next year will not be the warmest year ever, just based on, as you talk about the relationship between the cycles of the sun and the temperatures on the planet. There's just so much going on right now. And if I might add in one last point, the amount of fireballs coming through the atmosphere, how do you see this relating to the decreased output of the sun? The amount of, you know, meteors coming through, fireballs people are reporting, ground impacts, tremors that are caused by upper level explosions. That's just off the charts. It's literally 3 times more than last year. So how do you see this correlating in with slowdown in the sun output?